I grew up in a town that always smelled faintly of rust and rainwater. Flint, Michigan, wasn't the kind of place people dreamed about living in. It was the kind of place people dreamed about leaving. The river that cut through our town was both a lifeline and a curse, reflecting the broken factories that lined its banks. Yet, to me, it wasn't just rust and water. It was home, and home meant Ethan. Ethan was my older brother by 2 years, but he carried himself with the weight of someone much older. Maybe it was because we didn't have a father around. He had walked out when I was just a toddler, leaving Ethan to step into a role he never asked for. Our mother, Lila, did everything she could. She worked double shifts at a diner off Door Highway, her feet aching and her smile forced her customers who barely noticed her. That left Ethan and me with each other most of the time. We were as different as night and day. I loved books, words, and the way stories open up worlds far bigger than Flint. I wanted more than cracked sidewalks and shutter factories. I wanted skyscrapers, libraries, and opportunity. My teacher said I had potential, and for once, I believed them. Ethan, on the other hand, didn't care for books. His hands belonged to machines, not pens. He'd spend entire afternoons in our creaky garage, sleeves rolled up, oil smeared across his forehead like war paint, fixing anything neighbors brought him, bikes, lawnmowers, even toasters sometimes. He didn't read instruction manuals. He just knew, despite our differences, we were inseparable. I can still remember the evening. He taught me how to ride a bike. I must have been 10, knees already bruised from failed attempts. The air smelled of gasoline and freshly cut grass, and the neighborhood kids watched me wobble down the cracked pavement. Ethan jogged beside me, one hand gripping the back of my seat. "You've got it, Maya." "Don't look down," he urged, his voice steady. I was terrified of falling, but Ethan never let go until he knew I was ready. When I finally pedaled forward without his hand holding me steady, I heard his laughter echo down the street, full of pride and relief. That was Ethan in a nutshell, always pushing me to try, even when fear made me hesitate. In return, I became his anchor in school. Math frustrated him, especially algebra. He'd slam his pencil down, muttering that letters had no business being in math problems. I'd sit beside him at our chip kitchen table, patiently walking him through equations. "Just think of it like fixing an engine," I'd say. "You've got parts you can see and parts you can't, but they all connect." When his eyes lit up with understanding, it felt like victory for both of us. Life in Flint wasn't easy. Every year another factory closed, leaving more families scrambling for work. The town wore its hardships openly, in the boarded-up storefronts, the potholes that never got fixed, the resigned faces of people just trying to make it through another day. Still, Ethan and I built a world of our own within it. Summer nights were our favorite. We'd lie on the hood of Ethan's beat-up car, looking at stars barely visible through the haze of city lights. The meadow was warm beneath us, and the cicadas hummed in the background. On one of those nights, I whispered a promise. "I'll study hard, Ethan. I'll get out of here. And when I do, I'll take you with me. We'll live somewhere better, together." He didn't laugh at me, even though plenty of people would have. Instead, he nodded, staring up at the sky like he could already see that future. "I know you will, Maya. You were made for more than this place. I'll stay here, hold things down until you're ready. Someone's got to make sure you get there." Those words stuck with me, more than he probably realized. They were both comfort and burden, a reminder that my dreams weren't just mine, they were his too. When senior year rolled around, I felt the pressure in every cell of my body. My teachers pushed me toward scholarships, telling me my grades could take me far if I believed in myself. I had my heart set on Chicago, a city that felt alive in ways Flint never did, but the cost weighed on me. Even application fees seemed like mountains we couldn't climb. That's when Ethan stepped in. He started taking extra repair jobs, working late into the night. I'd hear the clatter of tools long after I'd gone to bed, see the smudges of grease under his nails the next morning. He never said it outright, but I knew what he was doing. He was saving for me. One evening, I walked into the garage to find him hunched over a neighbor's busted lawnmower. Sweat beaded on his forehead, the air thick with the smell of gasoline. "You don't have to do this, Ethan," I told him, guilt twisting in my chest. He didn't look up, just tightened a bolt. Yes, I do. You've got a shop most of us don't, Maya. I'm not letting a stupid fee stand in your way. I wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't fair that he had to sacrifice so much for me. But instead, I just stood there, fighting back tears, and whispered, "Thank you." Our bond was stronger than the river that ran through our town, stronger than the rust eating away at the factories. But I also knew change was coming. Every day brought me closer to graduation, closer to the possibility of leaving. And as much as I wanted that future, the thought of leaving Ethan behind felt like tearing a piece of myself away. The night before my scholarship interview, Ethan and I sat on the porch, the summer air thick and sticky. Fireflies blinked in the darkness, and the hum of crickets filled the silence between us. "You nervous?" he asked, sipping from a can of soda. Terrified. I admitted, "What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough?" He gave me that look, steady, unwavering, like he'd never doubted me a day in his life. "You'll nail it, Maya. You've worked too hard not to. And even if you stumble, you'll pick yourself back up. That's who you are." I leaned my head against his shoulder, comforted by his certainty. Deep down, though, I knew he was right about something else, something neither of us wanted to say aloud. My future wasn't in Flint. And one day soon, the bond that had held us so tightly together will be tested by a distance neither of us could control. Still, in that moment, under the glow of porch light and stars, it didn't matter. For now, it was just Ethan and me, siblings bound by love, sacrifice, and the unspoken promise that no matter where life took us, we would never let go of each other. The morning I boarded the bus to Chicago, I felt like I was standing on the edge of two worlds. One was the cracked sidewalks, rust-stained river, and familiar hum of Flint, the only life I had ever known. The other was a horizon filled with skyscrapers, bustling streets, and opportunities that seemed too large for someone like me. Ethan stood beside me at the bus station, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his worn jeans. He tried to look tough, like this was no big deal, but I saw the sadness in his eyes. I hugged him tightly before stepping toward the bus, the ticket trembling in my hand. "Don't forget me, Maya," he called, forcing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. I turned, tears blurring the world, and managed a shaky smile. "Never. You're coming with me, always." The bus pulled away, and through the smudged window, I watched Ethan shrink into the distance until he was nothing but a memory against Flint's gray skyline. Chicago hit me like a tidal wave. The air itself felt different, charged, alive. Skyscrapers rose like giants, glass shimmering in the sunlight. People rushed past me, their conversations a blur of accents and languages. At first, I felt small, swallowed whole by the city's enormity. But then I remembered Ethan's words, the certainty in his voice that I belonged here. And slowly, the fear gave way to determination. Classes consumed me. My professor spoke with a kind of passion that made my heart race, and the campus library became my sanctuary. For the first time, I wasn't a smart girl from Flint. I was just another student chasing dreams. I wrote letters home, long ones, filling page after page with descriptions of the city, the blue expanse of Lake Michigan, the way the skyline lit up at night, the freedom of walking streets where no one knew my name. "Ethan," I wrote once, "I walk along the lake today. The water stretches. So far it feels like the edge of the world. It's nothing like the river back home. I wish you could see it." He never wrote back. Writing wasn't his thing, but he called when he could. His voice, steady and familiar, grounded me. He'd ask about my classes, tease me about sounding like a big city girl, and then brush off any questions about his own life. I knew he was working hard, probably too hard, but he didn't want me to worry. Back in Flint, Ethan had found a job in an auto parts factory. The work was grueling, long shifts, endless noise, grease-stained hands. He rented a small apartment and lived frugally, sending me money whenever I mentioned struggling with textbooks or supplies. I tried to refuse, but he wouldn't hear of it. "Think of it as an investment," he said once over the phone. "One day, you'll be the one helping me." The ache of distance never really went away. I missed our late-night talks, the comfort of knowing he was just a room away. Instead, I filled the silence with new friends, study groups, and the rhythm of the city. That's how I met Liam. He was in my literature class, always sitting near the back with a notebook full of messy sketches. His family was from Evanston, well off, the kind of people who hosted holiday parties in sprawling houses with polished floors. At first, I thought he was like everyone else in the city, polished, untouchable. But then he struck up a conversation about a book we were reading, and I realized he wasn't just another face. He listened, really listened, and there was a gentleness in him that surprised me. One evening, as we walked back from class, he asked about my family. When I told him about Ethan, his whole expression softened. Maya, he said, he sounds like the kind of person you can lean on forever. He is, I replied, smiling. He's my anchor. I told Ethan about Liam during one of our calls. I tried to keep it casual, but I could hear the pause on the other end of the line. He's nice, I said quickly, different from the others, grounded. Ethan chuckled, but there was something forced about it. Just don't let him distract you from your books, all right? I won't, I promised, but part of me worried. Would Liam ever understand the world Ethan and I came from? That question followed me the first time I brought Liam home to Flint. It was during a holiday break, and the three of us sat awkwardly in our cramped living room. Mom fussed over Liam, offering him pies she could barely afford, while Ethan stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching. Ethan, this is Liam, I said, trying to bridge the gap. Liam extended his hand, without hesitation. Maya talks about you all the time, he said warmly. Ethan shook his hand, his grip firm, callous fingers meeting soft skin. For a moment, I thought he might dismiss him, but instead he nodded. She should. She's got a lot to brag about. The tension eased after that, though I caught Ethan watching Liam carefully, as though weighing every word, every gesture. Later that night, when Liam had gone, Ethan sat beside me on the porch. He seems all right, he said finally, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Not as fancy as I expected. I laughed, relief washing over me. He's just real. That's what I like about him. Ethan didn't say more, but I could feel the distance between us stretching a little wider. My life in Chicago was growing roots of its own, roots that reached beyond the cracked pavement of Flint. And though Ethan never said it, I wondered if he feared being left behind. As winter settled in, I returned to campus with a heavier heart. Flint was still Flint. Factories closing, neighbors struggling, the same river carrying its burden silently. But my world was shifting, expanding, and no matter how much I loved my brother, I couldn't stop it. At night, in my dorm room, I'd lie awake and think about that promise I made under the stars. I told Ethan we'd leave Flint together, but the more my future unfolded, the more I realized he might never leave at all. And I didn't know what that would mean for the bond we had fought so hard to keep. The years slipped by faster than I expected. My time in Chicago was a blur of lectures, late-night study sessions, and internships that opened doors I never thought I'd walk through. But with every passing semester, I felt the thread connecting me to Ethan stretched thinner. At first, I visited Flint often, holidays, long weekends, the occasional surprise trip. But as my responsibilities grew, those visits became less frequent. My phone calls turned shorter, squeezed between deadlines and meetings. I told myself Ethan understood, that he wanted me to succeed. Yet, deep down, guilt gnawed at me. Meanwhile, Ethan's life stayed rooted in Flint, the auto parts factory where he worked cut hours, then laid off entire shifts. He tried not to let me know how hard things were, but I could hear it in his voice, the fatigue. He carried like an extra weight on his shoulders. He picked up more repair jobs on the side, but the bills never stopped coming. One evening, I called him after a long day at my publishing internship. My voice was bubbling with excitement. Ethan, you won't believe this. My editor actually complimented my work today. She said I might have a real future here. There was a pause on the line before he responded. That's great, Maya. Really great. But something in his tone felt flat, like he was smiling for my sake, not his own. It wasn't until I told him about Liam that the distance between us turned into something heavier. By then, Liam and I had been together for nearly 2 years. He was steady, supportive, and made me laugh when stress threatened to overwhelm me. When he asked me to marry him, It felt like the next step in the life I was building. I called Ethan the night after the proposal. My heart raced as I said the words. "Ethan, I'm engaged." Silence stretched across the line, thicker than any pause before. Finally, he said, "Engaged? Wow. He's good to me." I added quickly, "I think you'll like him even more now. He really cares." "I'm sure he does," Ethan replied, but his voice carried a weight I couldn't name. When I brought Liam to Flint again, the tension surfaced. Mom was thrilled, fussing over wedding details that were still months away, but Ethan sat quietly, his eyes lingering on Liam in ways that made me nervous. Later that night, after Liam had gone to bed, I noticed Ethan's boots, worn thin, soles practically flapping. My heart clenched. "Ethan," I whispered, "you need new boots. I can help. Liam can too. We'll get you something better." The words left my mouth before I thought about how they'd sound. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes flashing. "I don't need charity, Maya. Not from you. Not from him." "It's not charity," I insisted, reaching for his arm. "It's just, I want to help." He pulled away. "Help? You think buying me boots is help? You don't get it. You don't get what it's like to stay here, to keep everything from falling apart while you're off chasing dreams." His words cut deep. Anger surged inside me. "You think I don't care? Everything I'm doing is for us." I didn't forget where I came from. Ethan. "Could have fooled me," he muttered. "You're not the same girl who promised we'd leave together. You've already left. The rest of us are just ghosts in your past." The fight left me shaking. I stormed upstairs, tears stinging my eyes, while Ethan retreated to the garage, slamming the door behind him. That night, the distance between us felt like an uncrossable ocean. Back in Chicago, life kept moving. My internship turned into a paid position. Wedding planning filled my weekends. I smiled for photos, sent Mom updates, and tried to bury the ache in my chest. But every time I thought about Ethan, I felt the sting of that argument. Then came the call that shattered everything. Mom had fallen ill. Something serious, something that demanded treatment far beyond what insurance or savings could cover. I dropped everything and rushed home, Liam by my side. Walking into that hospital room, seeing Mom pale and fragile against the white sheets, broke me. Ethan was already there, his eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. For a moment, all the anger between us vanished. We were just two scared kids again, clinging to the one person who had always held us together. "Ethan," I whispered, hugging him tightly. He didn't resist this time. His arms wrapped around me, strong and trembling all at once. "I can't do this alone," he admitted, voice cracking. "I tried, Maya. I really tried." And in that moment, I realized how blind I had been. I'd been so focused on building my future that I hadn't seen the weight Ethan had carried alone. Together, we faced a storm. I poured myself into researching aid programs, calling charities, talking to doctors. Ethan stayed by Mom's side every night, holding her hand, making her laugh despite the pain. Liam surprised me, too. He stepped in without hesitation, offering rides, helping with paperwork, never once making Ethan feel small. Slowly, we began to find our rhythm again. Late at night, after long days at the hospital, Ethan and I would sit on the porch like we used to. The air was heavy with summer humidity, but it felt lighter between us. "I'm sorry," I told him one night, tears welling in my eyes, "for forgetting how much you've done, for making you feel like you didn't matter." Ethan shook his head. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I let pride get in the way. I want to be strong for you, but I ended up pushing you away." We sat in silence after that, the kind of silence that heals rather than hurts. For the first time in years, I felt like we were on the same side again. Mom's recovery was slow, but steady. The crisis had forced us to see what we nearly lost. Not just her, but each other. And in the quiet of those long days and nights, I realized something important. No matter how far apart life pulled us, the bond Ethan and I shared was unbreakable. It had survived distance, pride, and anger. And now, it was stronger than ever. When Mom finally came home from the hospital, her laughter filled the house again. It was a softer version than before, tinge of fatigue, but it was laughter all the same. Ethan and I hovered around her like protective guards, making sure she rested, making sure she knew she wasn't alone. For the first time in a long time, our family felt whole. In those weeks, Ethan and I rebuilt what we had nearly lost. We spent evenings on the porch again, just like we did when we were kids. Sometimes we didn't talk much, just sat there listening to the hum of cicadas, watching fireflies glow in the thick summer air. Other nights, we'd reminisce about the past. Remember when I taught you to ride a bike? Ethan asked one evening, a grin tugging at his lips. I laughed. Remember when I almost steered straight into Mrs. Talbot's rose bushes? You did, he chuckled, shaking his head. You just got lucky she wasn't home to see it. The laughter between us came easier now. The bitterness from our fight lingered only as a reminder of how fragile our bond had once become, and how strong it was now. One night, I turned to him more serious than before. Ethan, I need to say this. Everything I've achieved, college, internships, the future I'm building, it's because of you. You sacrificed so much to give me a chance. I'll never forget that. He didn't respond right away, just looked out toward the river, its dark surface reflecting the moonlight. Finally, he said, I just wanted you to have what I couldn't. That's what big brothers do. I reached over and squeezed his hand. But you deserve a future, too. Not just holding me up. You deserve your own dreams. Maybe that was the first spark of change in him. Months later, when graduation came, I invited Ethan to Chicago. I'll never forget the look on his face as he stepped onto campus, surrounded by towering buildings and students in gowns and caps. He looked both out of place and proud, like he was standing on foreign soil, but knew he belonged there because of me. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I searched the crowd, and there he was, clapping so hard his hands must have hurt, his smile wide and unguarded. In that moment, I didn't feel like I had left Flint behind. I felt like I was carrying a piece of it with me, in him. After the ceremony, Liam joined us, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. You've got a brother to be proud of, he told Ethan. Ethan grinned. Yeah, I do. And she's just getting started. We celebrated that night, laughter echoing through the streets of Chicago. Ethan didn't seem out of place anymore. He seemed curious, alive, as though he was finally imagining what it might be like to build something for himself outside of Flint's weight. Not long after, he surprised me with a decision of his own. I enrolled in trade school, he said casually one evening over the phone. Mechanic certification. Figure it's time I stopped just fixing bikes in a garage and start doing something more with it. My heart swelled with pride. Ethan, that's incredible. You're finally doing this for you. Yeah, he said softly. For me, but also for Mom. For us. It's time I had a dream, too. The years that followed unfolded like a balance we have been chasing our whole lives. Liam and I built a life together in Chicago, where opportunities seemed endless. Ethan stayed in Flint but transformed his skills into something bigger. He opened his own small auto shop, one that became known across the neighborhood. People trusted him, not just because he fixed cars better than anyone else, but because he cared. We visited often, never letting the distance grow too wide again. Some weekends, Ethan would come to Chicago. Staying in the guest room Liam insisted was always his. Other times, Liam and I would drive back to Flint, where Mom would cook too much food, and Ethan would show me whatever car project he was tinkering on. The bond between us wasn't just restored. It was stronger than before, tempered by hardship, like steel forged in fire. On Mom's 60th birthday, we gathered in the backyard of our old house. Fairy lights strung across the fence glowed softly as family and neighbors filled the space with laughter. Ethan grilled burgers while Liam set up a table with cake and gifts. I watched Mom's eyes sparkle as she blew out her candles, surrounded by the family she had sacrificed everything for. After the party wound down, Ethan and I sat by the Flint River, the same river that had carried so many of our childhood memories. Its surface shimmered in the moonlight, peaceful and steady. Funny, Ethan said, tossing a small pebble into the water. When we were kids, I thought this river would always be our whole world. But it turns out it was just the beginning. I nodded, leaning against his shoulder. We've both come a long way. different paths, same roots. He smiled. Guess that's what family is. As I sat there with him, the hum of the river in the background, I realized the truth of our journey. Distance, pride, even pain, they had tested us, tried to pull us apart. But love and sacrifice had always pulled us back together. And that's the lesson I carry with me. True connection doesn't fade with miles or time. It endures through change, through hardship, through mistakes. It grows stronger when rooted in respect, in sacrifice, in the willingness to see each other's dreams as part of our own. Ethan and I started in Flint, bound by struggle and hope. We carried each other through storms and silence, through separation and reconciliation. And now, no matter where life takes us, I know one thing will never change. We are siblings. We are family. And the ties that bind us, those ties will never break.